What is going on, everybody? I am your host today for Fantasy Football Weekly, stepping in for David, who usually hosts the Fantasy Football Weekly show for Prime Sports World. Here, keeping it locked in on week 7. Here, keeping you up to date with all your fantasy football news and needs. But before we start the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to Prime Sports World here at Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And in case you miss this live feed, you can catch us on all streaming platforms where podcasts can be heard. That is Apple Podcasts, Samsung Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Ladies and gentlemen, as Prime Sports World keeps it locked in here for the week. 365 days, 7 days a week, baby. Anyways, man, lots to happen, man. You know what? Fantasy football last week was, I went 2-2 last week, and I actually lost a close one to David, our host here for Fantasy Football Week. I lost to him by a couple points. Yeah, Dak Prescott put him over the hump here against your boy Israel Rivera here in our Greatest People League. But I got off the schneid in a couple leagues. Actually, not off the schneid in one of my leagues. Actually, one of my leagues that I didn't draft actually won back-to-back games in a league that I must not name because this will be my last year in that league for all due purposes and problems, and everybody else knows. And the leader of that league knows why. But anyways, if I win, I'm just going to let it be known. That's when I'll chant out the name, baby. If I win in that league, baby, I'm going to let you know it's all for the big bucks, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, no, last week was good. I don't even know where to start last week and who was the top scorer last week. I believe it probably had to be Raheem Mostert. Let me see who was the last fantasy football top scorer last week. Believe it had to be Tyreek Hill last week. Believe it was Tyreek Hill last week. And I you know what? And I might be wrong, ladies and gentlemen. It was Raheem Mostert, like I said. Raheem Mostert last week had 34.2 points last week. Amon-Ra came in with 30.4. Adam Thielen came in with 28.5, and Tyreek Hill with 28.3, and then Cooper Kupp with 27.8. And I believe this is a PPR. This is PPR scheduling here. But yeah, Raheem Mostert had a big game on the ground, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 receiving yards, a touchdown. So he had 3 touchdowns total for your team. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown was right behind him with 12 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown. Good for 30 points there. And then Adam Thielen, 11 catches, 115 yards, a touchdown. And then Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 163 yards, had some big splash plays and the touchdown as Miami wrapped that one up early and often against the Carolina Panthers. And then Cooper Kupp had himself a day with 7 catches, 148 yards, and a touchdown. And then Dak Prescott, surprisingly, was right there on the outside looking in at number 6 with 24.8 fantasy points, 272 yards passing, a touchdown, 40 yards rushing, and a rushing touchdown. Rare one. We haven't seen that from Dak. We haven't seen that kind of running ability from Dak in a couple years. And then Travis Etienne, I'll even round out the 7th one. Travis Etienne, who has been elite this year, had 2 touchdowns on the ground at 55 yards, 3 catches for 28 yards as well. As we wrap out week number 6 here in fantasy football. And like I said, everybody, go ahead and drop your questions and comments here down in the comment section as I get rolling through the show. And I will go ahead and answer all of your questions as soon as possible as I get through to the show. But anyways, let's start with those rock throwers, as David likes to say, those gun slingers. And I'll start with David on points rankings first, as he has Josh Allen at number 1 going up against New England. He's got at number 2, he's got Lamar Jackson kind of high going up against Detroit. Top 10 defense. Lamar Jackson has been showing that that those points on the ground. At number 3, he's got Geno Smith. Yeah, going up against Arizona. I do like that matchup a lot. At number 4, he's got Tua Tagovailoa. Number 5, he's got Jalen Hurts. Both play each other, Philadelphia and Miami. So I can see that one being a high-scoring game. I do not think that even though both teams have been playing defense, I think the offenses are just going to trump each other as well. At number 6, he's got Patrick Mahomes going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. Hey, like I said, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, that offense hasn't been the same as recent years. But, Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes, and the Los Angeles Chargers are inept on defense, but they can't get after the quarterback, so they may rush. That's why Patrick Mahomes is probably down a little bit on our rankings here, on David's rankings at least. At number 7, he's got Justin Herbert. Number 8, Jared Goff. Going up against Baltimore. Jared Goff, I mean, since week 9 of last year, Detroit's been 13-3. And Jared Goff, I think, has 28 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So he's been money for the Detroit Lions. At number 9, he's got Jordan Love going up against Denver. In Denver. Hostile environment, but he thinks Jordan Love could bounce back here in a big way after taking that bye week after he threw that 3 interception performance the week before. And then rounding out the top 10, Trevor Lawrence. He's been playing well of late. He has Trevor Lawrence has a good matchup this week as well. And then on his outside looking in, he's got Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, and Sam Howell on the slate. I do like Kenny Pickett this week as well. I'm actually starting Kenny Pickett this week. I do believe that Kenny Pickett can get it done this week in fantasy. And also, I mean, both of my quarterbacks are benched. Not both my quarterbacks are benched, but both my quarterbacks are on bye weeks in that league. So I think Kenny Pickett, definitely, has a good matchup with the Rams, even though they have been playing really well of late. I mean, Akil Witherspoon has been playing at a high level. I had to pull up the schedules here because I'm like getting all tongue-tied here. And Trevor Lawrence has a matchup against New Orleans, whose defense has not been, as stout as it used to be, or as, we thought it would be this year. And then his sneaky in DraftKings is Tyson Bagent. Tyson Bagent of the Chicago Bears, 4,900 going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. He thinks Tyson Bagent has wheels on the ground. Nothing much changes with game plan in terms of him and Justin Fields. He showed some promise in the preseason as well. He's got a bevy of weapons. Hey, don't know, the kid might, do some things. And also a lot of teams do not have a lot of film on Tyson Bagent. So David thinks that he can be a sneaky in daily at 4,900. And that's what he's rolling with. For my rankings here, yes, I do have Josh Allen at number 1. Yes, he does have a hell of a matchup against New England. The Bills' offense has been somewhat dysfunctional this season, but I think Josh Allen can get it done. And number 2, I got Geno Smith. Yes, I do think highly of Geno Smith this week. I think he has a really great matchup against Arizona. I think they're going to be able to beat him deep. That defense just doesn't have any type of they lack talent all over the field defensively for the Arizona Cardinals. So I think Geno Smith is going to have a big day against the Cardinals. And I believe that game is at home. So that just gives him a little bit more oomph for that game. And then number 3, I got Patrick Mahomes. Yes, I know that, David was a little lower on him than me, but I think Patrick Mahomes at number 3 is right where he needs to be. Going against the Los Angeles Chargers. I think the Chargers defense, they're a little bit dysfunctional. I know they need to kind of win. They need this game, but Patrick Mahomes at home, I think it's going to be, I think it's money. They're 5-1 for a reason. Defense is good. They give the offense momentum that, they can come, even if the offense fails, defense comes out there, stops the following team and and they can go out there. But they're running the football. Isaiah Pacheco's running the football really well. They have a bevy of weapons. They have a bevy of like scattered kind of weapons all over. The one thing about the Kansas City Chiefs is their wide receiver room, right? Which hurts Patrick Mahomes a little bit, but he still has Travis Kelce there. I like Pat Mahomes at 3. I like that game to be a shootout, actually, between him and Justin Herbert. At number 4, I got Jalen Hurts. At number 5, Tua Tagovailoa, for the same reasons probably as David. I mean, it's probably going to be I think it's going to be a high-scoring game there in Philadelphia. And I think that, this is the Bama Bowl, right? Nick Saban should be in attendance, but he's got probably better things to do. But this is the Bama Bowl between Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. Which Bama starting quarterback is better than the other? Tua having an MVP season. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl appearance last season. So we'll see who wins in this matchup in the NFL. And then at number 6, I got Justin Herbert. Yeah. Going up against Patrick Mahomes. I think that offense, getting Austin Eckler back is a big help for that offense, especially, losing Mike Williams early in the year. They got Gerald Everett going a little bit early, going a little bit against Dallas. Keenan Allen got going against Dallas. Josh Palmer got going against Dallas. So I think this is still a very potent offense for Justin Herbert and company. At number 7, I got Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford, he's, Cooper Kupp back, Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee's pretty much that 4th option, in my opinion. And then the only thing that we have to watch out for, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen, is Kyren Williams not being there in the game. I think Kyren Williams is not going to play. So I believe that I think it's Zach. It might be Zach Evans. Zach Evans is probably going to be a starting running back. So, that might take a little something off of Matthew Stafford. But, like I said, I like the matchup that they have this week. And so, hey, you know what? I got Matthew Stafford going in this week and, doing this thing against Pittsburgh at home, especially. And Cooper Kupp is just, ever since he's come back, he's been unguardable. At number 8, I got Lamar Jackson going up against Detroit. At number 9, I got Sam Howell going against the New York Giants. You know what? The New York Giants showed me something defensively last week, and I'll actually get to it a little bit later on. But yeah, Sam Howell's looked great last week. I mean, he threw for a couple touchdowns last week. Didn't have crazy big game, but I think he could still be a top 10 quarterback this week. And then Brock Purdy this week at rounding out my top 10. I do like Brock Purdy this week against Minnesota. I think that is a game that Minnesota does need to win. I think they're kind of in desperation mode a little bit. No Justin Jefferson. I know they pulled out a close one against Chicago, but it's going to be tough, tough pickings against that defense. But I think Brock Purdy against that offense is going to be really good against Minnesota. And then I'm outside looking in. I got Jordan Love going against Denver in Denver. Jared Goff. And rounding out my top 13 is Baker Mayfield. Yes, Baker Mayfield. I do like Baker Mayfield in this game against Atlanta. That defense really hasn't showed me much. I think Mike Evans is going to pose a big threat against Atlanta. So I like Baker Mayfield in that game. Chris Godwin as well. And then my cheap option in FanDuel is at 6,500. I have Derek Carr from New Orleans. I think going against Jacksonville, I think if there's a team, at home, I think, Derek Carr has had the yardage. I think the way they're using Alvin Kamara is probably bodes well for him. Once they get Jamal Williams, it should be a little bit better for him. I do like Derek Carr in this matchup at home. I think he'll find Chris Olave a couple times on the deep ball. I think if he can play mistake-free football, he definitely can be a top 10 quarterback this week in fantasy. But just in daily fantasy, I'd take him. I rolled the dice at 6,500. That's cheap for a Derek Carr type of talent. So yeah, I do like that matchup that he has going up against Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then going over to our rock toters, from our gunslingers to our rock toters. I'll start with my list first. I got Travis Etienne at number 1, man. Yeah, Travis Etienne has been elite this season. Last week he had a couple, like I said, last week he had a couple touchdowns on the ground. Goes against a New Orleans team that just hasn't been great defensively. I think Travis Etienne gets it going early and often. At number 2, I got Kenneth Walker. Yes, going up against Arizona. Kenneth Walker has been very consistent this year for the Seattle Seahawks. I think he has a 100-yard game, a couple touchdowns in this game against Arizona at home. At number 3, I got Austin Eckler. Didn't run the ball so well last week. Had a couple good runs, but where he did most of his damage was receiving the football. I think he's in line for a touchdown or 2 against Kansas City this week. At number 4, I got Raheem Mostert. Yes, and it's kind of the same thing. At number 4 and number 5, I got Raheem Mostert and DeAndre Swift at number 5. I think both of those guys against both of those defenses, Miami and Philadelphia, I think they can have excellent games. Raheem Mostert has been excellent this year, and especially with Devin Achane being out, he's getting a majority in both of those carries. And I think Savion Ahmed, he had a touchdown last week, but it was more or less in garbage time. And then at number 6, I got Bijan Robinson. Yes, the rookie running back out of Texas. He was number 2 on my list for the last couple of weeks, but he's cooled down a little bit, going against a tougher matchup against Tampa Bay. In Tampa Bay, I like Bijan Robinson at number 6. He's still a top 10 running back in my book. His value is there out of the backfield, catching the passes is immense. In my opinion. At number 7, Alvin Kamara, the way they're using him, he may not be running the football as effectively as he is, but I mean, he's catching that football out of the backfield, just as much as as effective as, he would if he was running the football. He had 68 yards on 19 carries. He also caught 7 out of 8 targets. He had 8 targets from Derek Carr for 39 yards, for 36 yards through the air last week. So I expect Alvin Kamara to keep that same type of consistency up this week against Jacksonville. And then at number 8, I got Josh Jacobs from the Vegas Raiders going up against the Chicago Bears. Even though Chicago has been pretty stout against the run, I think Josh Jacobs is a very tough run. I think they'll get it going with him. And then at number 9, I got Saquon Barkley. Yes, man, Saquon Barkley. Just that 1/3 quarter drive where it kind of pushed them over the edge a little bit to get 95 yards. I like Saquon against that front. I like Saquon against the Washington Redskins this week. I think Saquon gets in the end zone this week. A little bit of an easier defense to face than the Buffalo Bills. I like what I saw out of the offensive line a little bit out of New York Giants, and they looked like they played harder for Tyrod Taylor, and they had a little bit more of a pep in their step since getting back Saquon Barkley. I think he's a top 10 back this week. And then Isaiah Pacheco running on my top 10. I mean, like they say, man, that guy runs hard, man. I mean, he runs like he's angry at the ground. I like him in his matchup against the Chargers. And then running out my top 13, I'm outside looking in. I got Jerome Ford from the Cleveland Browns. Jerome Ford going into Indy. I doubt Deshaun Watson plays in that game. I think PJ Walker will be the starter in that game. So they're going to lean a lot on Jerome Ford, to tote that rock. Last week, he had 19 touches in the week 6 win against San Francisco. Looking at the stats right here, he had 84 yards and 17 carries, and he caught two of his targets for 7 yards through the air. So if he could get in the end zone for you, man, that's a big feat for fantasy guys and for fantasy players. And I'm starting Jerome Ford in one of my leagues too, actually over Alexander Mattison, just because I think Alexander Mattison will have a tough time going up against the San Francisco 49ers this week. And then I'm outside looking in. Number 2, I got Aaron Jones. Hopefully I'm hoping that Aaron Jones could start. If not, you're going to see a lot of A.J. Dillon between the tackles. But if Aaron Jones starts, man, if Aaron Jones is back this week against Denver, see a lot of Aaron Jones out the backfield on screen plays, inside, outside. You'll see a lot of Aaron Jones against Denver. He should have a top 10 game if he is playing. But I do expect them to, I don't want to say, to kind of keep him on a pitch count, on a snap count. I don't think they'll give him 25 touches or whatnot. I think Aaron Jones would probably have 20 touches, but 20 really good touches against Denver. So instead of the 25, 30 touches, maybe, getting, 7 targets or so out the backfield, 21, 22 carries or whatever. Aaron Jones probably get 15 to 20 touches, I think, in that Denver game, but they will be effective touches in my opinion. And then round out my top 13 is Brian Robinson on the outside looking in. Yeah, going up against the New York Giants. I do like Brian Robinson. He hasn't really been that great this season. Washington's been kind of up and down. He did reach the end zone last week against the Falcons. Had 10 carries for 31 yards. He had 2 targets, 2 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown. So, that did, that did push him into, some top 10 status last week, top 13 status last week. I do think against the New York Giants, he'll have a little bit of an easier time getting around. But like I said, I think the Giants, man, defense, had looked good last week. I think they're playing harder with Tyrod Taylor, so we'll see. And then my sneaky options in daily fantasy, I got Zach Evans at 4,800. I think Zach Evans at 4,800 is he's going to be the main running back there in LA. It's looking more and more less likely that Kyrie Williams is going to be out. So look for Zach Evans to be the man at 4,800. And then I'm kind of rolling the dice here, but you got to wait till probably game time or Saturday, Sunday to kind of know if this guy is going to roll. Big James Robinson. Yes, the Green Bay Packers picked up James Robinson, signed him to their practice squad. He's out there at 4,200. It's super cheap. But if Aaron Jones doesn't go, James Robinson could see some carries. Outside of AJ Dillon. So, and James Robinson, we all seen the kind of talent he had. I know he hasn't been the same since tearing his Achilles. And I know, TJ and David kind of made fun of me calling him Big James Robinson in the comments last night. But I do believe that James Robinson, if Aaron Jones isn't going, James Robinson could be activated to the active roster, and he could get some run for the Green Bay Packers outside of A.J. Dillon. So look out for James Robinson at 4,200. And then moving on to David's rankings, he's got Bijan Robinson there at number 1. Whew. He's got Bijan Robinson going there at number 1. Even though, Bijan's had bad last 2 weeks, he does think that he can do some things against Tampa Bay. At number 2, he's got Raheem Mostert going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 3, he's got Josh Jacobs from the Raiders going against the Bears. At number 4, Austin Eckler. 5, Kenneth Walker. 6, Aaron Jones. He does believe Aaron Jones is going to play this Sunday, so he's got him high on the list with his high, and he does think he's going to have a high usage. At number 7, he's got Alvin Kamara. Same spot where I have Alvin Kamara. I mean, they're going against somewhat of a stout defense in Jacksonville, but I like the way they've been using Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. Definitely been, ever since he's come back, he's been their constant and most consistent weapon outside of probably Chris Olave. And then at number 8, DeAndre Swift in that same game against. He's a little lower on DeAndre Swift than I am. I'm a little higher on DeAndre Swift. But yeah, he has him in the same game. I think DeAndre Swift definitely has some top 10 value. At number 9, he's got Isaiah Pacheco, and then round out his top 10, he's got Saquon Barkley. And then outside looking in, he's got James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson going up against the Buffalo Bills, and then Javonte Williams going up against the Green Bay Packers. And then sneaky in DraftKings is Craig Reynolds from Detroit. You guys don't know, man. Craig Reynolds is the running back from Detroit. David Montgomery is out for at least they expect him to be out for a couple of weeks. I'm going to say this about Craig Reynolds. A lot of Detroit Lions fans got super excited, and people are just getting super excited because they had big block he put that sprung Amon-Ra St. Brown to a touchdown. So, guys automatically, oh my God, James, Craig Reynolds is that man. But we got to pump the brakes a little bit. I think we'll see a lot of throwing of that football when it comes to the Detroit Lions matchup this week. Not saying that Craig Reynolds is not a viable option, but at 4,900 you could roll the dice with Craig Reynolds. He might get a touchdown inside the red zone, as David Montgomery's been getting. But they have a tougher matchup against Baltimore. And then Latavius Murray at 4,400. Latavius Murray's been a red zone threat for the Buffalo Bills. That's pretty much what you'll roll a dice for there in DraftKings for him at 4,400 is for him to score a touchdown for you in the red zone. So Latavius Murray at 4,400 for David. And then from our rock toters to our pass catchers, and we're talking about the slimmies, the slim ones on the outside, the speed burners. wide receivers. I'll start with David's rankings. At number 1, he's got Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill only needs 150 yards or something like that to get 1,000 yards. He needs 170, 108. He needs 186 yards to get 1,000 yards by week 7. Over 1,000 yards. He's on pace to almost, I think he's on pace for 1,000 yards, for over 2,000 yards this season. Tyreek Hill has been crazy good this year. He might break that wide receiver record. At number 2, Stephon Diggs. At number 3, Amon-Ra St. Brown. At number 4, he's got Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has been, like I said, has been a godsend this year since coming back. He's just picked up right where he left off. At number 5, Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk, definitely against Minnesota. They don't have anybody to cover him down there in Minnesota. I think Brandon Ayuk definitely has some top 10 value this week. At number 6, he's got Devontae Adams going up against the Bears. I do not know if Devontae Adams might play this week or not. He does have that shoulder injury. He was a limited participant on Wednesday, so keep an eye open for that. I do have him still starting in my lineup this week. But Devontae Adams is you definitely have to keep an eye on his injury status this week. I do know that I'm not sure if Brian Hoyer will start or Aiden O'Connell. I do not believe that Jimmy Garoppolo will start this week as he's dealing with stuff as well. So you might see a game where Devontae Adams may sit out against the Chicago Bears this week. And then at number 7, we got Keenan Allen. At number 8, A.J. Brown. He's been a man amongst boys. The last 4 weeks, he's had over 125 plus receiving yards in every single game. I expect the same output against the Miami Dolphins this week. And then number 9, he's got DJ Moore. And then round out the top 10, he's got Calvin Ridley, who played really well last week going up against New Orleans this week. And then his outside looking, he's got Chris Olave, Tyler Lockett, and Zay Flowers, who caught a touchdown pass last week for Lamar Jackson. And then the sneaky options in daily fantasy for DraftKings has got Kendrick Bourne for 4,400 and Kadarius Toney from the Kansas City Chiefs for 3,800. He expects those two guys to possibly get a touchdown here for the respective teams. So, watch out for Kendrick Bourne from the New England Patriots. And the funny thing about New England Patriots, and I kind of want to tie this back into the quarterbacks, and I forgot to mention this for the New England Patriots, but in your cheap options in FanDuel for quarterbacks, watch out for Malik Cunningham. At 6,300, they have him at the same. Bailey Zappi's not going to play. Mac Jones is probably going to start. Malik Cunningham is still the number 2 quarterback behind Mac Jones. And so Malik Cunningham, they might put some package. He might get more snaps this week than you think. And if Mac Jones struggles a little bit and that game kind of gets out of hand a little bit, watch for Malik Cunningham to possibly come into that football game against the Buffalo Bills. I know that if Mac Jones struggles through the air, I think, Bill O'Brien is going to have, a package waiting for Malik Cunningham. I think Malik Cunningham, I saw him in preseason. He looked pretty well. I followed his career at Louisville. So watch out for that as well. But Kendrick Bourne at 4,400. That's a cheap option. The one thing about Kendrick Bourne, I believe Kendrick Bourne had 10 catches last week for 89 yards, no touchdown. So that's the reason why he has him up there. He was targeted heavily by Mac Jones. So look for Kendrick Bourne at 4,400 on David's rankings. And then my rankings here, I got Tyreek Hill at number 1, Cooper Kupp at number 2, has just been a godsend. Number 3, I got Stephon Diggs. At number 4, I got Amon-Ra St. Brown. At number 5, I got A.J. Brown a little higher, man. I think he's just going to have a monster game against the Miami Dolphins this week. And then at number 6, I got Keenan Allen, who had a pretty stout game against the Dallas Cowboys last week. So I expect him to do the same against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then number 7, I got Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk going up against Minnesota. I do expect Brandon Ayuk to have a good game. And then Jalen Waddle, who's been getting the target shares. He had another touchdown last week as well against Minnesota. I do like Jalen Waddle again to get a touchdown against Philadelphia. He's been getting the target shares. He just hasn't been getting the yards as of as like he was last year. But I do like Jalen Waddle this week again. And number 9, I got Puka Nacua, who kind of came back down to earth. I mean, he's still the leading receiver in the NFL for rookies. This year. But Puka Nacua last week, 4 catches, 26 yards, no touchdowns, as Cooper Kupp did a lot of the heavier lifting last week. But I do expect, this week, for Puka Nacua to, have a, one of those games like he did the previous week, where he had 7 catches for, 70 something yards, or whatever the case is, against Pittsburgh. As I think Pittsburgh will lock in and key in a little bit more on Cooper Kupp, which is a very hard task to do, even with 2 defenders, as the last 2 opponents tried to do against them. I do see Puka Nacua kind of getting some more of the target share from Matthew Stafford this week. And then rounding out my top 10, I got Mike Evans from Tampa Bay. I do like Mike Evans this week. I do believe that, even though Mike Evans is going to go against Atlanta, I do like that matchup. He definitely had 10 targets last week, still getting the high volume, had only 4 catches for 49 yards. I expect Mike Evans to have a monster game. Actually, when it's all said and done, I think Mike Evans against Atlanta can have a top 5 fantasy game for wide receivers this week. I do expect him to catch more balls than he did. 4 out of 10 isn't a Mike Evans type of game. I think Mike Evans gets 7, 8 catches, maybe 9 catches for 150 yards and a couple scores against Atlanta, as they don't really have anybody to check him either. And then my outside looking in, I got Tyler Lockett going up against Arizona. Chris Olave, who's been pretty damn good this year as well, going up against Jacksonville. And then at number 3, I got Devontae. I'm outside looking in, I got Devontae Adams. I kept him on my top 10 because I don't think Devontae Adams may not play, with that shoulder injury. So I'll keep an eye on that. But I got Devontae Adams in my top 13 still. And then if you're looking for some cheaper options here in FanDuel, yes, again this week, man, I got Tutu Atwell. Going up, playing this week. I do like Tutu Atwell. Pittsburgh is looking to, shut down Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Look for Tutu Atwell over the top to, catch some big balls. So yeah, I do like Tutu Atwell this week. I think he's had a touchdown in his last 3 out of 4 games. So no, he had a touchdown against Philadelphia. He had 1 big catch against Arizona for 30 yards. But like I said, he's the big play threat. So, if they're shutting down Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, expect Tutu Atwell over the top as the deep threat. And then at number 5, I got Jackson Smith and Jugba. Yes, Jackson Smith and Jugba. They're at 4,900, going up against the Arizona Cardinals. I think this is the game that Jackson Smith and Jugba has a breakout game. And he had 7 targets last week, caught 4 balls, 7 targets last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. He had 48 yards, 12 yards a catch. I think this week, Jackson Smith and Jugba gets a touchdown. I think he has probably his best game as a rookie against Arizona this week, and he's cheap at 4,900. You might as well roll the dice there and don't be a chicken. Anyways, moving on to our tight ends, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, and I'll start first. I got Travis Kelce here at number 1, going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. And number 2, I got George Kittle. Number 3, Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta is the man down there in Detroit. As Jared Goff continues to look for him. Definitely one of the best rookies this year, going up against Baltimore. Some about those Iowa tight ends, I got them going back to back here, and definitely got 3 Iowa tight ends in the top 5 that is tight end you. At number 4, I like Mark Andrews, especially in that same matchup going up against Detroit. Mark Andrews, had a pretty solid game last week, man. Had 4 or 6 targets, 69 yards against the Tennessee Titans after, dropping a couple balls, especially one in the end zone the week before. So I do like Baltimore. I do like Lamar Jackson to find Mark Andrews. At number 5, I got T.J. Hockenson. At number 6, Kyle Pitts, man. Kyle Pitts, had himself, a bounce back game last week. 4 of 6 targets, 43 yards, 1 touchdown against the Washington Commanders. I expect Kyle Pitts. I mean, even the week prior, Kyle Pitts was showing some life. So I expect Kyle Pitts to continue his solid play going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Expect Desmond Ridder to look for him and Drake London a lot as they use him. They use Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith a lot on the same field. As they spread out Kyle Pitts, a little bit wider and keep Jonnu Smith kind of more at the traditional tight end position going up the seams. At number 7, I got Dallas Goedert. At number 8, Evan Ingram, who's been solid for the last 2 years with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. I like that matchup against New Orleans for him. And number 9, Gerald Everett, who came back to life a little bit against Dallas last week. Man, 3 out of 5 targets, 16 yards, a touchdown. That puts you right there, in the thick of things for a top 10 tight end last week for Gerald Everett. So, usually, Gerald Everett, isn't finding the end zone. He has so much talent. Gerald Everett could be a top 10 tight end week in, week out. I just don't know what his role is there in a Chargers uniform. Obviously it's to be a starting tight end, but he's typically, even when Mike Williams goes down, he's still the 3rd, 4th option, especially now with Austin Eckler back. He's still the 4th option in that offense. So Gerald Everett, I expect him to get a touchdown or to have a better game. Kind of wake up from the slump that he's had this year going up against Kansas City. And then round out my top 10, Logan Thomas, who did not have a good game last week, but they do go against the New York Giants. I expect Logan Thomas to kind of come back. He hasn't been consistent this week. He had a couple good weeks this week, this year, but I expect Logan Thomas to come back to form a little bit against the New York Giants. Look for Tim Howard, look for him underneath and stuff like that. And then on the outside looking in, Michael Mayer, the rookie tight end out of Notre Dame, playing for the Las Vegas Raiders. He's the last couple of weeks. They've made it an emphasis to get it to their tight ends more, as Jimmy Garoppolo has pushed to utilize those tight ends more with Josh McDaniel. So expect Michael Mayer to have a good game. He played 81% of the snaps this past week. He had 18.7 of the target share on in a 68.7% route run rate per PFF over the last 2 weeks. And he's produced pretty great numbers over the last 2 weeks. He's definitely has some top 13 upside. I expect Michael Mayer to have a really a pretty decent matchup against the Chicago Bears, who've allowed the 6th most fantasy points to a tight end this year. So yeah, I do expect the Bears to give up some yardage to Michael Mayer. And then at number 2, I got Jonnu Smith. Same reason, the Atlanta Falcons have been using him a lot lately. Then at number 3, I got Luke Musgrave. And then rounding out, and then if you're looking for a sneaky option in daily fantasy, looking no other than Michael Mayer at 4,900. He's pretty cheap. Roll the dice on Michael Mayer. He's been pretty awesome the last couple of weeks there in Vegas. And then David's tight end rankings. He's got Travis Kelce at 1, TJ Hockenson at 2. And then number 3, he's got Sam Laporta. And then number 4, George Kittle. Back-to-back Iowa tight ends. And then round out the top 5, he's got Mark Andrews. At number 6, he's got Kyle Pitts. At number 7, he's got Evan Ingram. And then number 8, he's got Cole Kmet going up against the Raiders there in Chicago. No Justin Fields. He believes that Tyson Bagent is still going to be able to find Cole Kmet. At number 9, we got Logan Thomas. And then rounding out David's top 10 is Dallas Goedert. And then his top 13, he's got on his outside looking in, he's got Darren Waller, Zach Ertz, and Gerald Everett. And then his sneaky options in FanDuel, he's got in DraftKings, he's got Michael Mayer at 2,700 and Donald Parham out of the Los Angeles Chargers at 3,000. Who I believe Donald Parham caught a touchdown last week, if I'm not mistaken. Here, I'll check that up. But yeah, Donald Parham for the Los Angeles Chargers. No, he did not catch a touchdown last week, but he did catch a touchdown too. He caught 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago against Minnesota, but he likes that matchup against Kansas City at 3,000. You can roll the dice on Donald Parham. And then moving over to our defenses, we got the Buffalo Bills. We'll start with David's rankings. We got the Buffalo Bills at number 1. At number 2, he's got the Cleveland Browns. They have the Cleveland Browns defense has been elite this year, even without sustaining drives on offense. They were elite against the San Francisco 49ers. If you haven't seen Myles Garrett play against Trent Williams, that is scary strength for a defensive end, right there. And they have a hell of a matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. I expect the Cleveland Browns to feast on the Indianapolis Colts. At number 3, he's got the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Arizona Cardinals. At number 4, he's got the Washington Commanders going up against the Giants. And at number 5, he's got the Green Bay Packers going up against the Denver Broncos in Denver. And on his outside looking in, he's got the San Francisco 49ers at Minnesota. That's a bit of a surprise right there that he has San Francisco 49ers on the outside looking in, even though San Francisco is going up against a team that doesn't have Justin Jefferson, that has struggled a little bit with Alexander Mattison. But Kirk Cousins is still finding guys. They still got KJ Osborne. They still got Jordan Addison. They still got TJ Hockenson. So he expects that one to, kind of be of a high scoring game, I guess. And then at number 2, he's got the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the New Orleans Saints. And then round out his top 8, he's got the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Los Angeles Rams. And then the sneaky option in DraftKings is the Atlanta Falcons at 2,800 going up against the Washington Commanders this week. And then my rankings, number 1, we're on the same wavelength. The Buffalo Bills going up against New England. I expect Mac Jones to struggle in this game. I expect Mac Jones to get replaced by Malik Cunningham in this game at some point. And I expect the Buffalo Bills to get a defensive score at some point in this game and force a couple turnovers. I do believe they will be the number 1 defense as well in this week in fantasy. And then at number 2, we got the Seattle Seahawks. At number 3, I got the San Francisco 49ers. I'm a lot higher on the San Francisco 49ers this week just because of the fact that, look what the Bears did. The Bears were able to, keep it a 1-score game against the Minnesota Vikings. They've kind of struggled a little bit without Justin Jefferson. Outside of the 1 touchdown to Jordan Addison, where they looked okay. They struggled to run the football. They struggled to move the ball down the field. The Chicago had time of possession locked up against them. They weren't good on third downs. So I expect the San Francisco 49ers to make life a living hell for sorry for that. But I expect them to make it tough on Kirk Cousins this week, especially in Minnesota. But David thinks that Minnesota, as you heard earlier in the last couple shows in our NFL prediction shows, that David thinks that Minnesota is going to play with a little bit more fire as they, really are desperate for a win there. So he does think that Minnesota is going to play with a little bit more confidence this week at home. And then at number 4, we got the Cleveland Browns going up against the Indianapolis Colts. I got them as a top 5 defense. And then round out my top 5, I got the Las Vegas Raiders. Man, they've had good outputs the last couple games. I expect them to continue their outputs against a rookie quarterback in Tyson Bagent, an undrafted rookie quarterback in Tyson Bagent in Chicago. I think Max Crosby is probably outside of Nick Bosa or TJ Watt. He's probably the 3rd best pass rusher in the league, if not the best this season. Max Crosby is an absolute terror there on the edge. I expect the Las Vegas Raiders to have a good defensive game against the undrafted rookie in Tyson Bagent. And I'm starting them in a couple leagues this week as well, so I might be biased on that. And on my outside looking in, I got the Washington Commanders going against the Giants. I got the Bucks going against the Atlanta Falcons, and I got the Green Bay Packers. Yes, my Green Bay Packers going into Denver. That Denver offense is quite dysfunctional. I expect the Packers to have a good game against them. And then my cheap option in FanDuel, everybody's going to be surprised about this, but I got the New York Football Giants at 3,400. They're super cheap. I like the defense. I like what I saw last week out of them against the Buffalo Bills. I expect them to bring it at home against the Washington Commanders. They always play them tough, especially the last couple years. That has been a real tough nail-biting type of game. I think last year went in the OT and they tied it. And it went to a tie. I think this week look, man, Bobby Okereke was all over the field. He set the tone last week. I expect him to do the same dang thing against the Washington Commanders. And I expect actually the pass rush from the New York Giants to kind of get to Sam Howell a little bit this week. at home. So I expect the New York Giants to have a better fantasy output, than the last previous weeks. And I think with, Saquon Barkley there, I don't think, rushing Daniel Jones. I don't think you need to rush Daniel Jones back. He has a neck injury. I think Tyrod Taylor is just perfectly fine right now. I think they played with a lot more confidence with Tyrod Taylor and Saquon Barkley. So I do like the Giants at 3,400, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be a chicken, like I say, and roll the dice on FanDuel, especially if you're only paying a couple bucks, $5 for a single game, or $10 for a full game, full weekend slate. I would roll the dice with the New York Giants. You can put more money elsewhere in your lineup for FanDuel. But yeah, that has been a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, for Fantasy Football Weekly, as we will come back next week here with David and myself here for Fantasy Football Weekly, as David was in a concert last week, had a mini vacation from Prime Sports World, but we keep you locked in here. And before we leave out, every week we do have a player that say that who is going to be the top fantasy point getter or point getter this week. Last week it was Raheem Mostert, and this week I do believe that it will probably this week. This is a tough one. I had a couple players. I actually had Tyreek Hill going up against Philly. I think that's going to be a tough matchup. I had Cooper Kupp going up against Pittsburgh. I think that's a tough matchup for him. But in all actuality, I'm actually going to go with Kenneth Walker for the Seattle Seahawks. I think he's due for a big game against Arizona. I think Kenneth Walker is going to have 3 touchdowns on the ground this week for the Seattle Seahawks. I think he's your biggest fantasy point getter this week. And if I had to pick a close second for biggest fantasy point, I'm going to go with Travis Etienne going up against the New Orleans Saints. I do believe I like that matchup for Travis Etienne this week in New Orleans. So keep it locked in. But yes, my 2 fantasy highest point getters are going to be 2 running backs, and it's Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So you guys like, share, and subscribe to the podcast here at Prime Sports World, here at Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and put down who you think your fantasy points getters top point getter is in the comment section, and leave any questions here in the comment section for us to answer later on. And in case you missed this podcast, you can catch us on all streaming platforms where podcasts can be heard. That is Apple Podcasts, Samsung Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Ladies and gentlemen, as Prime Sports World keeps it locked in 365 days out the year, 7 days a week, baby, bringing the heat, ladies and gentlemen. And as I like to say, happy hump day to everybody. Tomorrow's Thursday, so it's only a couple days from the weekend, and then we have college football. Actually, college football started yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, so we'll bring the crossover tomorrow, and then college football showdown here on Friday with me and my main man Christian Simpson, and hopefully Matt James will hop on that show as well. And we will start to bring back college basketball madness, ladies and gentlemen, as the college basketball season is only a few weeks away. So I believe it starts November 6th is the first slate of games for the college basketball season. So you guys do not want to miss that up-to-date content here from Prime Sports World, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, as I like to sign off, I am your host, Israel Rivera. And ladies and gentlemen, in case I missed you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Ladies and gentlemen, sayonara, suckers.